How would you defeat your anxiety if you knew that everything you need is already within you? There's a story they never told you. A man who accumulated millions but lost his inner peace. He had everything the world considers success, yet woke up every dawn with his chest tight, drowning in his own thoughts. This millionaire didn't seek answers in expensive therapies or luxury retreats. He found it in something ancient and powerful: Stoicism. 8 lessons that transformed his anxiety into inner strength, his desperation into self-discipline, his chaos into unshakable peace. These lessons have been available to you all this time. You've ignored them because they're simple, free, and require real internal work. Are you ready to face what you've been avoiding? What's coming aren't superficial tips. It's personal transformation that demands you stop being who you've been to become who you need to be. The question isn't whether these lessons work. The question is whether you're ready to apply them when everything inside screams it's easier to continue as before. The first lesson arrived during his darkest moment. Winter dawn, another sleepless night, staring at red numbers in his portfolio. 2 million lost in a week. Company in crisis. Marriage crumbling. Then he remembered Epictetus: some things are under our control, others are not. Under our control are our opinions, aspirations, desires. Not under our control are our body, possessions, reputation. Anxiety doesn't come from external problems. It comes from trying to control the uncontrollable. 4 years he lived in constant tension, manipulating variables completely outside his reach. Market volatility, others' decisions, uncertain futures. Stoicism taught him something revolutionary. Real freedom isn't getting what you want, but wanting what you have power to change. Every morning he asked, "What am I worried about today that's actually under my control?" The list was shorter than expected. He couldn't control stocks, partners' decisions, or the global economy. But he could control his response, decisions, actions, perspective. When his mind spiraled toward catastrophic scenarios, he stopped. Is this under my control? If no, he redirected energy toward what he could influence. Real emotional management isn't eliminating negative emotions, but recognizing which deserve attention and which are mental noise. Anxiety about the uncontrollable is always noise. Worry about what you can change is useful information. His mind, conditioned by anxious patterns, resisted this approach. It whispered that stopping worry meant something terrible would happen. But anxiety about the uncontrollable is expensive emotional procrastination, keeping you busy feeling productive while avoiding what really matters. He learned to recognize anxiety's physical symptoms as alarm signals. You're spending energy in the wrong place. Chest tightness and racing heart became reminders to ask, what's under my control here? When he accepted he couldn't control outcomes, paradoxically, his outcomes improved. Energy once spent on anxiety now channeled toward concrete actions. Instead of obsessing over negative scenarios, he used that time planning real strategies. Real emotional independence doesn't mean not feeling. It means not being enslaved by feelings about unchangeable things. It means feeling fully what you need to feel without letting those feelings dictate decisions when they have no basis in reality. The Stoics knew, real self-control isn't controlling your entire environment, but controlling your response to that environment. It's not eliminating uncertainty, but developing inner strength to navigate uncertainty without losing your center. After his first month, he slept 8 consecutive hours for the first time in years. Not because problems disappeared, but because he stopped taking them to bed. Could you apply this lesson? Are you willing to let go of controlling what you never could control to gain real control over what you can change? The second revelation: 90% of his anxiety lived in the future. Scenarios that never occurred, problems that never materialized, catastrophes existing solely in his hyperactive imagination. Marcus Aurelius had written, "Confine your attention to the present." Not as superficial mindfulness but as mental survival strategy. When you constantly live in the future, you miss the only moment where you have power. Now. Anxiety is temporal projection. Your mind traveling to uncertain futures, living experiences that haven't occurred as if they were real. It's a defective reality simulator generating real suffering from fictional problems. He developed the immediate reality exercise. When his mind spiraled toward catastrophic futures, he asked 3 simple questions. What is happening exactly now? What needs my attention right now? What concrete action can I take in 5 minutes? The first question forced him from his head into immediate reality. Usually, I'm sitting in my office, breathing, alive, no immediate danger. The gap between anxiety and present reality was abysmal. The second redirected attention from imaginary problems to real responsibilities. Instead of obsessing about next quarter's disasters, he focused on the email needing response, the call to make, the decision requiring attention now. The third transformed anxious paralysis into immediate action. Anxiety thrives on ambiguity but disintegrates before specificity. Define exactly what you'll do in 5 minutes and your anxious mind loses ground. His mind had developed neural highways toward future worry. Changing these patterns was like training atrophied muscle. Initially requiring the exercise every few minutes, his mind argued that obsessive future planning was being responsible. But when his attention was completely present, decision-making capacity multiplied exponentially. Solutions emerged naturally without distraction from 1,000 possible futures. Stoicism taught him, the present isn't just the only moment where you have power, it's the only moment that exists. Past is memory. Future is imagination. Only now is real. Master now and your future becomes more predictable, less threatening. He implemented blocks of absolute presence. 25-minute periods with attention completely dedicated to single tasks, mind forbidden from wandering toward future concerns. During these blocks, he experienced forgotten flow, complete absorption in the present activity. Emotional management simplified when he understood intense emotions almost always connect to thoughts about past, guilt, resentment, or future, anxiety, fear. Present moment emotions tend to be clearer, more manageable, more useful as information. Completely focused on present, he could distinguish real intuition from projected anxiety. Intuition comes from current moments, from subtle information your conscious mind processes. Anxiety comes from stories you tell yourself about what might occur. His morning ritual became the foundation of inner strength. Before checking devices or planning his day, 10 minutes in complete silence, observing breath and acknowledging present. Not esoteric meditation but basic recognition. I'm here now, alive, able to respond to whatever comes. When truly present, most problems are timing problems, either from the past, irreversible, or future, uncertain. Real present moment problems are surprisingly manageable. The resilience he developed didn't come from having answers for all possible futures, but from trusting his ability to respond appropriately when situations actually occurred. This confidence wasn't arrogance but realism, demonstrated capacity to handle challenges when they really presented themselves. His mental preparations for negative futures were sophisticated procrastination forms. He convinced himself anxiety about the future prepared him for it, when it actually paralyzed him in the present. Real emotional independence came when he stopped needing future certainty to feel present security. He developed the fortress of the moment, complete availability for what's happening now without constant distraction from next step worries. After 3 months intensive practice, he realized he'd spent entire days without significant anxiety. Not because life became easier but because he learned to live where he actually existed, in the present. What's harder, controlling thoughts about the future or controlling actions in the present? Are you willing to release imaginary demons to face only real dragons? The third lesson, most anxiety came not from great crises, but from 1,000 small invasions of mental peace. Unnecessary emails, purposeless meetings, empty social commitments, toxic news, energy-draining conversations. He'd built a financial empire but allowed anyone to invade his mental space. He'd developed discipline to make money but none to protect tranquility. The Stoics knew, you can't control what enters your life, but you can control what remains. Seneca wrote, it's not that we have little time but that we waste much. Our millionaire discovered this applied not only to time, but to mental, emotional, and spiritual energy. Real self-discipline isn't just doing difficult necessary things. It's not doing easy things that slowly destroy you. It's developing a mental immune system that automatically rejects what doesn't serve your growth. He conducted the peace audit. For 1 week, he documented everything consuming his attention. Every email, notification, conversation, activity. Then asked brutally, does this contribute to my growth, purpose, or peace, or does it exist because I've never had courage to eliminate it? Results were devastating. 70% of mental consumption was pure noise. Irrelevant information, non-entertaining entertainment, inertial social obligations, worries about others' problems. He developed Stoic filters, non-negotiable criteria for what deserved attention. Growth filter. Does this make me stronger, wiser, more capable? Purpose filter. Does this align with real objectives or disguise distraction? Peace filter. Does this contribute to mental tranquility or erode it? Control filter. Do I have real power over this or is it external noise? Anything failing at least 2 filters was eliminated immediately. No gradual reduction, no when I have time, immediate elimination. Indecision about what to eliminate is itself anxiety. The first cut was digital. He eliminated non-essential notifications, deleted news apps maintaining constant alert about unsolvable problems, unfollowed social media accounts generating unnecessary comparison or negativity. His phone stopped being constant interruption to become a tool used when he decided. The second cut was social. He declined invitations adding no real value, stopped attending meetings where he contributed or learned nothing, reduced superficial conversations consuming time without generating connection. This didn't make him a hermit. Maintained relationships deepened because he was no longer constantly distracted by empty commitments. He had more emotional energy for people who really mattered. The third cut was informational. He stopped obsessive news consumption. Instead of constant updates about every global crisis, he chose specific moments to inform himself about actionable topics. Being less informed about others' problems made him more effective with his own challenges. The inner strength he developed didn't come from resisting occasional temptations, but from completely eliminating unnecessary ones. It's easier to avoid alcohol without it at home than resist the bottle in your refrigerator. It's easier to maintain mental peace by preventing chaos entry than trying to meditate while phones constantly vibrate. But implementing boundaries required confronting social addiction to being busy, informed, and available. Modern society confuses activity with productivity, information with wisdom, availability with goodness. The Stoics knew these confusions are subtle slavery forms. The strongest resistance came from his own mind. He developed identity as someone who could handle everything, was always available, kept up with everything. Protecting peace required releasing these ego-inflated identities. After 2 months implementing filters, something extraordinary occurred. He experienced boredom for the first time in years. Not anxious boredom from insufficient stimulation, but productive boredom from mental space for deep thinking. In that space, ideas, solutions, and perspectives began emerging, previously blocked by constant noise. The resilience he developed didn't come from handling more stress, but experiencing less unnecessary stress. Like an athlete training with greater intensity because he eliminated preventable injuries, he could face real challenges with more energy by not wasting it on manufactured drama. At month 3's end, he calculated recovering approximately 3 daily hours of quality mental time. Not free time, but time where his mind could function without constant interruptions. Those 3 hours became his day's most productive and creative. Real problems didn't disappear, but now he faced them with full mental capacity instead of attention residues left after processing 1,000 irrelevant distractions. Are you willing to give up what keeps you busy but empty? Can you develop discipline not only to do the difficult, but to stop doing what makes you weak? The fourth lesson came during turbulent flight that made him face, for the first time in years, the real possibility of death. While the plane shook violently and passengers panicked, he experienced something surprising. Deep calm and devastating clarity about what really mattered. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Death smiles at everyone, the only thing we can do is smile back." Not as morbid obsession, but as daily reminder of impermanence, giving weight and urgency to every decision, moment, relationship. The Stoics practiced meditatio mortis, not for depression but awakening. When you truly integrate that your time is limited, that everything is temporary, that one day all this will be memory, something profound changes in how you experience life. He realized he'd been living as if immortal, postponing important conversations, delaying significant experiences, staying angry over trivial things, worrying about problems that wouldn't matter next year. Anxiety thrives when you forget you have an expiration date. Every morning before rising, he reminded himself, "This could be my last day. So, how would I want to live it? What would really matter? Who would I want to be with? What would I want to say or do?" This wasn't depressing but liberating. When you filter decisions through mortality's lens, the superficial automatically vanishes. Minor worries lose power. Priorities become crystalline. The deepest transformation occurred when he stopped living for indefinite futures and began living for the present, conscious of its finitude. He didn't become reckless but more intentional, more present, more authentic in every interaction. He developed last day practice. Weekly he lived completely as if it were his final day on earth. Not doing dramatic things but being completely present in every moment, expressing genuine gratitude, saying important words normally postponed. Self-discipline became more natural when he understood he didn't have infinite time to develop it. Every day of procrastination, every day living below potential, was one less of his few remaining days. This urgency didn't generate anxiety but clarity of action. When worrying obsessively about future problems, he asked, "If I had only 6 months to live, would I spend mental energy on this?" The answer was almost always no. This didn't make him irresponsible but focused on what he could really control and change. Emotional management simplified dramatically when he integrated impermanence. Intense negative emotions lost power when seen from mortality's perspective. Will this matter when I'm dying? Is this how I want to spend my last emotional energy reserves? But the deepest lesson wasn't about his own death, but everything's impermanence. Financial problems dominating his mind for years became manageable when he remembered both success and failure are temporary. His company, however important, would one day cease existing. His money would stay when he left. This perspective didn't make him nihilistic but freed him to act from deeper motivations. Instead of working solely to accumulate untakeable wealth, he began asking what legacy he wanted to leave, what positive impact he could have in remaining years. The resilience he developed didn't come from believing he was invincible, but from completely accepting vulnerability. Without illusion of total destiny control, paradoxically you become stronger to face whatever comes. You're no longer fighting fundamental human existence reality. Every night before sleeping, he imagined dying in peace, having lived that day completely. If I died now, would I be at peace with how I live today? Was there something important I didn't do out of fear, laziness, or distraction? This practice didn't generate death anxiety but life urgency. It didn't make him obsess about mortality but value vitality. Every day he woke felt like additional gift, extra opportunity to create, love, contribute. Emotional independence came when he stopped fearing loss so much. When you truly integrate that everything is impermanent, health, relationships, wealth, status, you no longer live with constant terror of losing what you have. You can fully enjoy it while having it without anxiety about eventual loss. After 4 months practicing mortality consciousness, something extraordinary occurred. Life became more intense, vivid, meaningful. Colors seemed brighter, experiences richer, moments more precious. Not because something external changed but because he was finally completely present to experience it. Are you living as if immortal, postponing what really matters? Or are you willing to use mortality consciousness as fuel for completely awakened life? The fifth lesson came during his life's darkest period. His company faced a lawsuit threatening everything he'd built. His marriage had ended. His health deteriorated from chronic stress. Everything defining his identity was collapsing simultaneously. In maximum vulnerability, he discovered Stoicism's most transformative power, using suffering as raw material for inner strength. The Stoics weren't masochists seeking pain, but had developed wisdom not to waste inevitable human existence pain. Marcus Aurelius, writing from battlefields facing empire-devastating plagues, developed a radical perspective. The mind asking, "Why is this happening to me?" should ask instead, "How can I use this?" He'd operated under fundamentally wrong premises. Life should be easy, success meant absence of problems, happiness required eliminating suffering. The Stoics knew this premise was not only false but the source of additional unnecessary suffering. Real transformation began when he stopped asking, "Why is this happening?" and began asking, "What is this trying to teach me? How can I emerge stronger, wiser, more capable?" This wasn't superficial positive thinking or real pain denial. It was pragmatic recognition that since suffering was inevitable, extracting maximum value made sense. Like a miner finding himself in darkness, deciding to search for gold instead of complaining about the dark. He developed the adversity protocol. Facing significant challenges, he asked 5 specific questions. What specific strength do I need to develop to overcome this? What is this revealing about my current weaknesses? How can I use this experience to help others in the future? What opportunities are hidden within this problem? What version of myself would emerge if I handled this with excellence? These questions transformed his relationship with adversity. Instead of circumstance victim, he became life student. Instead of resisting pain, he investigated it, extracting lessons, using it as evolution fuel. The legal suit became a masterclass in business resilience. It forced him to develop never-needed legal skills, build more robust systems, diversify in future protective ways. Apparent destruction became smarter reconstruction. His divorce, emotionally devastating, became opportunity to examine years ignored relational patterns. It forced real emotional independence development, learning to be alone without loneliness, building identity not dependent on external validation. His health crisis forced confronting decades of bodily neglect. It became catalyst for developing disciplines that not only restored health but made him feel better physically than in his 20s. The self-discipline he developed didn't come from heroic willpower but urgent necessity. When your world crumbles, you don't have procrastination or self-pity luxury. Every day requires decisive action, clear focus, solution-directed energy. But the deepest lesson wasn't managing external crises but internal dialogue during adversity. He discovered his mind had two distinct voices: suffering voice, interpreting everything negatively, seeking culprits, and strength voice, seeking lessons and opportunities in every challenge. Emotional management became active practice of consciously choosing which voice to feed. He didn't deny negative emotions. Fear, sadness, frustration were natural responses to real losses. But he didn't allow those emotions to dictate internal narrative or strategic decisions. He developed daily extraction ritual. Each night before sleeping, he reviewed the day's challenges, specifically looking for hidden value in each difficulty. What had he learned? What strength developed? How had he grown as a person? This ritual transformed his suffering experience. Instead of something simply to endure, pain became valuable information, growth fuel, wisdom raw material. The resilience he developed wasn't ability to return to previous state, that's simply recovery. It was ability to use every difficult experience as stepping stone towards superior self-version. Every crisis left him not just intact but improved. 6 months after his most difficult period began, something extraordinary occurred. External problems had resolved or stabilized, but more importantly, he'd emerged as a fundamentally different person. Stronger, wiser, more compassionate, more capable. The emotional independence he developed was unshakable. He'd faced worst fears and survived. He'd been struck by life in ways he'd feared for years, discovering he was stronger than imagined. At this period's end he wrote, "I thought suffering was happiness' enemy. Now I understand avoided suffering is growth's enemy. Intelligently processed suffering is the fastest path to strength." The Stoics were right. You can't control what happens to you, but you have total control over what you do with what happens. You can be victim of circumstances or sculptor using those circumstances to create stronger self-version. Are you willing to stop running from suffering to begin extracting its hidden gold? Can you see next adversities not as punishments but as opportunities to develop muscles you didn't know you had? The sixth revelation. He'd been managing mental and emotional energy like a teenager manages first salary, spending impulsively on anything capturing attention, without strategy or return on investment consideration. The Stoics, especially Seneca with finance background, understood something modern psychology barely rediscovers. Mental energy is your most valuable limited resource. Scarcer than time, more crucial than money, more determining than talent. Like any scarce resource, it requires intelligent administration. Epictetus taught, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few needs." This applied not only to material possessions but energetic demands. True mental wealth consisted not in processing infinite information but needing to process very little to live well. He implemented total energy audit. For 2 weeks, he documented how he spent mental, emotional, and physical energy in 30-minute periods. Results were devastating. He spent approximately 60% of mental energy on activities that not only didn't add life value but actively worsened it. Worrying about unsolvable problems, processing irrelevant information, maintaining superficial conversations, consuming non-entertaining entertainment. Like a successful investor paradoxically losing money by depositing most funds in negative interest accounts. All that spent energy not only didn't generate positive returns but left him more anxious, distracted, less capable of handling real challenges. He developed the energy portfolio, categorizing all energy expenses into 4 groups. High-yield investments, activities multiplying energy. Physical exercise leaving him more vital, meditation clarifying mind, deep inspiring conversations, energizing creative work. Necessary investments, activities not multiplying energy but indispensable. Managing finances, maintaining important relationships, fulfilling legal and ethical obligations. Neutral expenses, activities neither adding nor subtracting energy significantly. Genuine entertainment, real rest, personal maintenance routines. Energy drains, activities consuming energy without return. Unproductive worry, social comparison, garbage information, toxic relationships. The self-discipline he developed didn't consist of forcing more difficult things but systematically eliminating energy drains and maximizing high-yield investments. Like optimizing an engine, not working harder but eliminating unnecessary friction. He implemented daily energy budget. Every morning, before deciding how to spend his day, I have approximately 8 hours of high-quality mental energy. How will I invest them for maximum return in growth, impact, and satisfaction? This question radically transformed decision-making. He stopped saying, "I don't have time," and began saying, "That doesn't deserve my energy." He stopped feeling guilty for not doing everything and began feeling proud of doing the right thing. Emotional management simplified when he understood chronic negative emotions were fundamentally energy investments with negative return. Future anxiety, past resentment, envy toward others, all consumed enormous energy without producing useful benefit. When noticing his mind beginning to ruminate about unsolvable problems or compare himself with others, he asked, "Is this energy expense generating any value? If not, what would be smarter energy investment right now?" He developed energy multipliers, activities that not only energized him but improved efficiency in everything else. Strategic physical exercise, not exhausting workouts draining him, but physical activity optimizing brain chemistry for greater mental clarity and emotional stability. Cognitive nutrition. Instead of consuming random information, he carefully selected content expanding perspective, improving skills, or deepening wisdom. Energizing relationships. He prioritized time with people who inspired him, challenged him constructively, or simply made him feel more alive and authentic. Genius zone work. He identified few activities where natural talent, passion, and world demand intersected, concentrating most productive energy there. After 3 months implementing this approach, results were extraordinary. He not only felt less anxious but was significantly more productive, creative, and present in relationships. He'd found the most powerful renewable energy source, stopping waste of energy he already had. At the 6th month's end, he calculated increasing available useful energy by approximately 40%, not because he had more total energy, but because he'd eliminated massive waste characterizing his previous life. Like finding 4 additional hours of high-quality energy daily. The Stoics knew real freedom doesn't consist of doing everything you want, but wanting only what's worth doing. Inner strength doesn't come from having infinite energy but wisely investing finite energy you have. Are you managing energy like wise investor or impulsive spender? Are you willing to brutally audit how you spend your most valuable resource to recover power you've been wasting? The 7th lesson came when he finally confronted the most uncomfortable truth. He'd spent decades waiting for someone else to solve his fundamental problems. Waiting for perfect partners to appear, magical opportunities to arise, circumstances to align favorably, someone to recognize his value and give him what he deserved. The Stoics understood something modern victim culture and emotional dependency obscures. You are the only one responsible for your salvation. Not because you're guilty of everything happening to you, but because you're the only one with real power to change it. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, wrote something revealing profound humility. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself. If the most powerful Roman emperor understood his well-being depended on inner world, not external power, what excuse did anyone else have? Most radical transformation began when he stopped asking, "Why doesn't anyone help me?" and began asking, "How can I help myself more effectively?" He stopped looking for external saviors and began developing self-salvation capabilities. This wasn't isolation philosophy or distrust toward others. It was pragmatic recognition that while you can receive support, advice, and companionship from others, final responsibility for your life, happiness, and growth rests completely with you. No one else can live your life for you. He developed the self-salvation protocol, a system for approaching any problem from complete emotional self-sufficiency. Step 1. Total responsibility acceptance. This is my problem to solve, my challenge to overcome, my life to direct. No one else will save me. Step 2. Internal resource inventory. What skills, knowledge, strengths, and resources do I already possess applicable to this situation? Step 3. Gap identification. What do I need to learn, develop, or acquire to handle this effectively? Step 4. Independent action plan. What are specific next steps I can take without depending on others to change or help me? Step 5. Disciplined execution. I will act consistently on my plan, adjusting as necessary, but without abandoning fundamental responsibility. The self-discipline he developed wasn't martyr's heroic sacrifice. It was architect's discipline systematically building desired life, brick by brick, day after day without waiting for someone else to do the work. His financial crisis became self-salvation masterclass. Instead of waiting for market improvement or savior investors, he developed multiple income sources, learned new skills, diversified risks, and built systems not dependent on uncontrollable external factors. His post-divorce emotional loneliness became opportunity to develop real emotional independence. Instead of desperately seeking new relationships to fill voids, he learned to be complete alone, enjoy his own company, build life so rich and satisfying that future partners would be well-being additions, not emotional survival necessities. His health problems became bodily self-rescue projects. Instead of seeking magical solutions or blaming genetics, he developed exercise, nutrition, and stress management disciplines that not only restored health but made him feel better physically than in decades. Emotional management transformed when he stopped seeking external validation for decisions. He developed what Stoics call internal tribunal, ability to evaluate own actions according to consistent internal standards, without constant external approval need. This didn't make him cold or disconnected. Relationships improved because he no longer needed others to be responsible for his emotional well-being. He could love without being needy, give without expecting obligatory reciprocity, support without creating dependency. The resilience he developed was unshakable because it didn't depend on external factors. He'd built internal systems of support, motivation, and problem-solving functioning independently of circumstances. Like having emotional emergency generator automatically activating when external energy sources failed. He implemented daily self-salvation training. Each day he intentionally put himself in small situations requiring self-problem solving, decision-making without consulting others, or handling discomforts without seeking external rescue. Fire drills for self-sufficiency muscle. These exercises weren't masochistic or antisocial. They were pragmatic preparation for reality that in life's most critical moments, you're frequently alone with internal resources. Better develop those resources, better prepared for any challenge. After 1 year implementing self-salvation protocol, something extraordinary occurred. Paradoxically, while needing less from others for basic well-being, he became more capable of authentically contributing to their lives. His help came from abundance, not need. At this period's end he wrote, "I thought self-salvation was selfishness. Now I understand it's the most generous way to live. When you don't need others to rescue you, you're free to genuinely help them. When you're complete in yourself, you can love without suffocating, give without exhausting, live without draining." The Stoics knew real freedom doesn't consist of having everything you want, but being able to create meaningful life with any circumstances set. Inner strength doesn't come from unlimited support but knowing you can count on yourself no matter what. Are you waiting for someone to save you, or are you willing to become your own hero? Can you love being completely responsible for your own life, or do you still need to blame others for what doesn't work? The 8th lesson came when he realized something forever changing his understanding of real power. The most powerful strengths are invisible. For years he'd sought external power, recognition, status, control over others. But the Stoics knew the most lasting, transformative power is what no one can see, touch, or take from you. Epictetus, former slave turned influential philosopher, understood this better than anyone. He'd lived human power's deepest paradox. You can be physically captive but mentally free, externally powerless but internally invincible. Silent strength isn't vulnerability's absence. It's inner foundation presence so solid you can afford external vulnerability. It's not fear's lack but capacity to act correctly despite fear. It's not doubt elimination but ability to make important decisions even in uncertainty. This final transformation began when he stopped trying to impress others with strength and began developing strength needing no audience. He stopped seeking external validation for power and began building power completely independent of others' opinions. He developed invisible disciplines, daily practices no one could see but that built unshakable inner strength. Thought discipline. Every morning, before external world interaction, he spent time consciously observing and directing thoughts. Not passive meditation but active mind training. Like athletes training specific muscles, he trained specific mental muscles. Attention, perspective, constructive interpretation. Response discipline. Instead of automatically reacting to events, he developed ability to create conscious pause between stimulus and response. In that space he consciously chose responses based on values and objectives, not immediate impulses. Private integrity discipline. Actions when no one watched became as impeccable as public actions. He developed internal standards maintained regardless of whether anyone else would notice. Silent growth discipline. He stopped needing to announce improvements, achievements, or insights. He focused on growing consistently without external recognition need. The self-discipline he developed was different from any previous discipline. It wasn't discipline to impress others or achieve external goals. It was discipline to build character that could sustain itself under any pressure, remaining integral in any circumstance. He implemented daily character training. Each day he intentionally tested himself in small but significant ways, kept self-promises though no one else knew them, maintained high standards in easy-to-relax situations, chose right paths when easy paths were available. These weren't dramatic or heroic exercises. They were small daily decisions building integrity muscles, rising when alarms sounded despite tiredness, completing promised tasks though no one would verify, maintaining confidentialities though revealing was tempting. Emotional management reached its most refined form when he developed operational equanimity, ability to maintain internal emotional balance regardless of external chaos. Not emotional suppression but emotional stability. This stability didn't come from controlling emotions but developing inner center so solid that emotions could flow without destabilizing clear thinking and wise actionability. Like skyscrapers with foundations so deep they can sway with wind without collapsing. The resilience he developed was different from resistance. Resistance fights adversity. Resilience adapts, learns, frequently emerges strengthened. But silent strength goes beyond both. Ability to maintain fundamental essence intact regardless of external forces acting upon you. His relationships transformed when he stopped needing others to recognize his strength, wisdom, or value. Paradoxically, when he stopped seeking recognition, he began receiving it naturally. But he no longer needed it for self-esteem or identity sense. Emotional independence reached purest form. He could be alone without loneliness, criticized without feeling attacked, fail without feeling failed as person. His emotional well-being had become internally generated and maintained. After 2 years developing silent strength, something extraordinary occurred. His presence changed in ways others couldn't define but definitely felt. He developed what ancients called gravitas, seriousness and depth commanding natural respect. He didn't need to raise his voice to be heard. Didn't need threats to be taken seriously. Didn't need to demonstrate intelligence to be considered wise. His inner strength had become so solid it radiated naturally outward. But most importantly, this strength was completely his. No one could give it or take it away. It didn't depend on external circumstances, others' opinions, or favorable conditions. It was power in purest form, self-generated, self-sustained, unbreakable. Challenges continued coming, such as life. But now he faced them from completely different place. Not as someone who could be broken by adversity, but as someone who'd built something indestructible within himself. At transformation's end, he wrote, "I spent decades seeking power over others, control over circumstances, recognition from world. What I found was infinitely more valuable. Power over myself, control over my responses, recognition of my own worth. The strength no one sees is the only strength no one can touch." Real inner strength isn't about never feeling fear, pain, or uncertainty. It's about feeling these completely and still acting with wisdom, courage, and compassion. It's about being fully human without being enslaved by your humanity. The Stoics knew the most lasting power doesn't come from controlling external world but mastering internal world. It doesn't come from eliminating challenges but developing capacity to face any challenge with grace and effectiveness. Are you willing to develop strength no one can see but everyone can feel? Can you find power in being strong when no one's watching, integral when no one's checking, disciplined when no one's applauding? 3 years after beginning his Stoic journey, our millionaire woke up one morning realizing something extraordinary. He hadn't felt real anxiety in months. Not because life became perfect, but because he'd developed something more valuable than perfect life. The ability to live fully an imperfect life. Markets still fluctuated, relationships still had challenges, his body still aged, the world remained uncertain. But he had fundamentally changed. He developed what ancient Stoics called ataraxia, not problems absence, but inner peace presence that remained stable through all problems. The 8 lessons had integrated into his being like second nature. He no longer spent energy fighting the uncontrollable but channeled all strength toward what he could really change. He lived completely in the present, using past as teacher and future as direction, without being enslaved by either. He developed the discipline of no, protecting mental peace as his most valuable resource. Death had stopped being distant terror to become daily counselor, reminding him of each moment's precious temporality. Suffering had transformed from enemy to forge, molding strength he didn't know he could develop. He managed energy like master investor, multiplying power through intelligent choices. He'd become his own savior, freeing others from impossible burden of being responsible for his well-being. And he developed silent strength, needing no audience, recognition, or external validation to exist. But perhaps the most profound change, he no longer identified as someone who had problems with anxiety. He'd become someone who, like any human, sometimes experienced anxiety, but had tools, perspective, and inner strength to process it wisely. The personal transformation he achieved wasn't a result of magic pill, revolutionary technique, or brilliant insight. It was a result of applying, day after day, principles tested by more than 2,000 years of human practice. Principles simple in concept, profound in application, transformative in result. His company had not only survived crises but prospered under wiser, more centered leadership. His relationships deepened because he no longer needed others responsible for his emotional stability. His health improved dramatically because he'd stopped poisoning his body with chronic anxiety stress. But more important than external success was daily internal experience quality. He woke with energy and purpose. He faced challenges with curiosity instead of terror. He related to others from abundance instead of need. He went to bed at peace with himself and his day's decisions. He discovered Stoicism wasn't cold or repressive philosophy as many believed. It was the most practical and liberating philosophy he'd found. It didn't eliminate human emotions but processed them more wisely. It didn't avoid pain but transformed it into growth. It didn't deny challenges but faced them with greater effectiveness. Reflecting on his journey, he realized anxiety had been, paradoxically, life's best gift. Without it, he never would have sought tools that transformed not only his anxiety experience but his complete experience of being alive. He'd learned emotional independence didn't mean not needing anyone, but not needing anyone to be different for him to be well. He discovered inner strength wasn't vulnerability's absence but courage presence to be vulnerable from strength place. His story wasn't unique. It was simply another example of what's possible when someone decides to stop being victim of their mind and begin being architect of their inner experience. The Stoics had left a detailed map for this transformation. He'd simply had courage to follow it. And now, when meeting others struggling with anxiety, depression, or despair, he didn't offer superficial advice or quick solutions. He offered something more valuable. Living certainty that transformation was possible, that tools existed, that the path had been traveled by millions before him. Not everyone would take it. Many would prefer continuing suffering in familiar ways than growing in unknown ways. But for those few ready to do real inner transformation work, lessons were available, time-tested and experience verified. His life had changed not because he'd found a way to avoid universal human challenges, but because he developed wisdom and strength to dance with them more elegantly, effectively, authentically. He discovered true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts but inner richness. That true power isn't found in controlling others but mastering oneself. That true freedom doesn't come from eliminating external limitations but transcending internal limitations. And that true peace isn't found in problemless world but in heart that learned to remain serene in any storm's midst. The 8 lessons had done more than cure his anxiety. They'd converted him into person he'd always had potential to be but never had mapped to become. The Stoic Millionaire had been born. Not someone rich in money practicing philosophy, but someone rich in wisdom who'd learned to live. His true fortune wasn't in bank accounts but in unshakable character strength, perspective clarity, and inner peace depth. And that fortune, unlike any material wealth, was truly his forever. No one could steal it, markets couldn't devalue it, circumstances couldn't destroy it. It was power in purest form, completely internal, completely owned, completely transformative. Are you ready to begin your own path toward this inner wealth type? Do you have courage to face truth that everything you need to transform anxiety into strength is already within you, waiting to be developed? The map is available. The tools have been tested. The decision is yours. If you felt this content touched something within you, like the video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who also needs to hear this. Leave in the comments, what part marked you most? This helps the channel continue existing, and you help other people be reborn in silence.